want to go from the actual flange right here out to the wheel bearing. What's up everybody? Today I'm gonna show you how to measure for not only a drive shaft, but also axles. So our friends over at Driveshaft Shop make us custom drive shafts and axles for all of our builds. Every single thing that we do needs drivetrain, and these guys always come through for us. And so whenever we're doing a winter's quick change differential, specifically, that is going to need some custom axles. Typically, they would have the measurements on like a factory replacement setup, like what's on this 370Z rally car, or if it's just a regular street build, and they want to offer the different levels of axles or drive shafts, they might have that information. But there's a lot of people out there doing custom builds, and we have to measure for them so that they build us the right part. And the last thing you want to do is get the wrong measurement and have the wrong part come in, because that's not only going to delay you in your build, you're also going to have to ship it back and forth, get it modified, extra cost, waste of time, things like that. So first, we're going to show you how to measure for a axle. So this car is going to need custom axles from the winter's quick change differential all the way out to this hub. And so whenever you're measuring for axles in the back of one of these cars, you want to go from the actual flange right here out to the wheel bearing. So this surface right here, which that's what the face of the axle will butt up against when you actually bolt that thing down. So it's best to have the car at ride height, and I know this is not a ride height, but just for the sake of showing you everything, I have it jacked up in the air so we can get underneath it and everything else. But you want it to be sitting at ride height so that your wheels are sitting nice and level. But what's nice about this setup is that there's not much droop, so it will look similar to this, a nice flat line, versus if this thing was drooped all the way down. Trying to measure up to it, it's not ideal. So this works out for us for this video. And so what you do is you get a tape measure, you'll run it straight through here, and you'll see all the way down there where the flange is for the actual axle itself to the differential. So I'm gonna grab a tape measure. So now I'm going to feed this guy through the hub straight back to that axle flange. So once it's pressed up against it, sometimes these are do it with two people, but a lot of people work alone. So you're gonna hold that nice and flat, look in from the top side, and see where that number comes out. And so that number is 25 inches on the dot. And so let me show you what that looks like. So right down there, you'll see it comes out to 25 on that flange. So you can measure it a couple times, measure the top, measure the bottom, and all around, but you'll see that it comes out to 25 inches. And so there's obviously going to be a little bit of slack, a little bit of slop, in the axle itself. There's going to be a little bit of wiggle room. You want to get that measurement as close as possible, because they want to make sure that axle has the right amount of movement in and out, so that when you're moving through your cycle, it has the right amount of play. You don't want it to be too bound up on one side or the other for it to have proper clearance, and you're not smashing into your cages and damaging your axles. So that is how you measure for the axle length. And for the drive shaft, we're gonna go underneath, go for a little trip under the sweet tube frame chassis. So here's our flange for the winter's quick change, and then right over this way is our transmission. Now on this, you want to remove this little cup. Now for the drive shaft, a lot of people will look at this and they wonder where to measure from. So the easiest way to say it is you're measuring from the oil seal, the seal, not the end of the output shaft, not the end of the casing, the actual oil seal itself. So you will then take your tape measure, get it in that little cubby, and press it right up against the oil seal. See, I'm like past the output shaft and past the casing, right up against the oil seal. And we're gonna head it on back this way. So now with this all the way drawn back, I have the front of the tape measure on that oil seal, and then the rear. On a winters, you go to the flat of the flange. And so right here, I got, let me make sure I'm nice and straight, 50.5 inches, 50.5 inches. And then just for fun, you can always take a second measurement, go to the top side of the oil seal, go to the top side of the flange, still 50.5 inches. So on a typical differential that would have a flat flange, with the 4 bolts that go in this way and there's a flat circle, you just measure to the face of that flange. On this style coupling, like what we have on the quick changes and on other types of differentials, this style with the U-joint right into it, you measure from the flat, this would be your flat surface on this flange. Not here, not with the cups in, and not this either, this part. And once you have those measurements, you just forward them right over to the Driveshaft Shop and they'll take care of the rest. Obviously, they're gonna ask you for what kind of differential you run, what your rear hub spline count is, so you would physically count the tips of these splines. So it'd be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on, all the way around. Make sure not to count the first one twice, that's why we have that little Sharpie mark right there. But that will give you the spline count for the rear axles, so they make sure that fits. Same thing on the transmission. Output shafts can be different between different transmissions. You know, the 6XD offers a larger and a smaller output shaft, as well as input shaft. And then the Winter's quick change differential, same thing. They have a smaller and larger spline. That one's the 1350. They have, you know, 1330, 1310, I believe. We always just get the biggest ones. So you always want to make sure you have that info as well. And there are ways that you can measure those pieces online. The spline count is easy, but measuring the bolt circles is you know, something that every manufacturer does a little bit differently. So you want to make sure that, that is correct, but also make sure to get that information over to them and they'll build you whatever you want. So hope this was helpful. Good luck on your project and we'll see you next time.
How cool is this? 50th anniversary Z, one of the last traditional front engine, normally aspirated rear wheel drive, short wheelbase sports GT cars.